So again, my background's in Ayurveda and yoga. I've written a few books, Body Thrive, which is based on Dinacharya, the habits of yoga and Ayurveda. And then recently I released Master of You. I'm looking for it on my bookshelf. It's around here somewhere because I've just been using it to create the next level of the course from it. Master of You is really a 5-point system to synchronize your body and your time and your home with your ambitions. And I took the essence of Ayurveda in a very futuristic way so that people could get a direct hit of how to use Ayurveda to really, make stuff in your life happen. So we're not here to talk about that today, but I just wanted people to know here that like I've been teaching Ayurveda for about 20 years. And my passion in Ayurveda really is to make it super practical. So all the courses and curriculums that I've created in the last 20 years are really just for that. It's just to make it so that people can understand things that I think are sometimes more complex in a way that is like super down to earth and obvious that you can feel the benefits of it right away in your life. And so that's what we're going to do today as we talk more about the immune system and about daily routines, or particularly some things to do every morning. So I've been asking myself this question of like, who's winning? Who's winning right now in a world with COVID, with global warming and a rise of autoimmune issues? Because to me, like this is, before I went into Ayurveda and yoga, I worked for the International Institute for Energy Conservation in their global warming education program. We had a global education program on this. And I know many of us are noticing that there's more fires, there's more storms, all this stuff that was predicted, really well predicted by scientists in the 1990s. I went to global science meetings at NOAA and whatnot in different institutes in Washington, DC. And it was like pretty much like what we're living now in 2020 was predicted. It was all on the global models that we were seeing of what was going to happen. And so we're living in a stressed out ecosystem. And there's just a part of that reality that, if you're experiencing that, just know that this was predicted and it is our new normal. So we want to win. Like we want to be in a situation where we can adapt and that we can thrive and that we can be part of the solution. Now, the rise in autoimmune disease, from my background in Ayurveda, that's been interesting to observe in the last 20 years. Because 20 years ago, it was, there were, I think, maybe 40 to 50 autoimmune diseases. Now there's, more than 100 autoimmune diseases, which is an increase in differentiation. So what's happening? Like, why are our bodies attacking themselves? What's going on there? And what does Ayurveda have to offer in terms of that? And that's really what we're going to look at today. What does yoga have to offer with COVID, with global warming, with autoimmune disease? And so what I came down to is that people who have a high BI. So what's BI? And BI is body intelligence. So many of us were raised with the concept of IQ, right? That you have your cognitive intelligence or your IQ. But what I found is that really in Ayurveda, we have very good maps to understand that there's different levels of intelligence in the body. And these levels of intelligence, you could say that, we have an EQ or an emotional intelligence. We have a SQ, a spiritual intelligence. We have an EQ, emotional intelligence. But in Ayurveda, we would also say that we have an energetic intelligence as well, a pranic intelligence. So the word for prana in Ayurveda, in the West, we would say it's energy. So we have these different levels of intelligence. And many of you, just by nature of being here, I know you're currently, like right now from showing up on this call, you're investing in your body intelligence, right? You're interested. What can I do? What can I do personally to direct how I feel tomorrow, right? That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. And this is really important because again, like who's winning? People who have a higher body intelligence. This is really, to me, very, very important. And I'm going to get into what is body intelligence. So if I have to distill, what is body intelligence? If I have to just distill it into one sentence, this is so far, and again, I am a work in progress, just like the rest of you. So far, and so are all my curriculums, so that's why we update them, and that's why we do the Yogi Detox live. twice a year, because there's always something emergent. So what I'm finding is that body intelligence, if I was just going to sum it up, is conscious direction of the nervous system. Now, I'm not saying immune system here. And I want to be really clear here that in Ayurveda, it's been very clear. In Ayurveda is an ancient wisdom tradition. It rose out of the Indus Valley, co-arose with yoga over the last, 4,000 or 5,000 years, depending on where you look for source information. It's been translated generation to generation over time. I mean, here I am, I'm a white woman. I have no connection to India. Like, none of my genetics go back to India. I go to Russia and Poland and Europe, but not India. And here I am trying to translate this ancient wisdom for now, because this is the science of life. And the way that the yogis and the Vaidyas, or the Ayurvedic gurus, if you will, physicians, if you will, what they found was that the practices of breath and the practices of mind enabled direction of the nervous system, and that the nervous system controlled the immune response. So if we aren't doing practices that increase our conscious direction of the nervous system, I'm arguing here that we're not winning. We're not going to win, right? COVID, global warming, autoimmune, and other diseases on the rise that are causing our bodies to fight themselves. We're fighting our own ecosystems. We're not going to win. And I so dearly want us all to win. And the yogis have shown us over time, well, how do you direct the nervous system? And we're going to get into a few of the little morning routines that can be super helpful with that. So the question then is, like, why do some people have higher body intelligence and others don't? And we should just think about that. And especially if you're like, you know what, I do have good conscious direction over my nervous system. Like, why? What do you do every day? What have you been doing for the last few decades that are enabling you to have a higher body awareness? Because if you're not doing something, I would argue that you probably don't have control over your nervous system, because it requires practice. And the yogis were really clear about this in the Yoga Sutras, that it requires repetitive practice. Abhyasa is the word in Sanskrit, abhyasa. And it goes with another word in the Yoga Sutras, which is vairagyam. And this is vairagyam is really interesting because it's without desire. Like, there's a sense of surrender and letting go of the fruits of the practice that are required to do the practice with your full engagement. You're not like projecting your nervous system into a future state. You're so super present that you're able to develop now. So people with a high body intelligence have invested time and usually money into developing their intrinsic abilities. The reason money is often required is teachings. Like learning Ayurveda, if you've ever tried to learn Ayurveda from a book, if you ever tried to learn yoga from a book, it's good. It's better than nothing, like for sure. Like, yes, go authors. I love writing books. I love reading books. I have huge libraries. But you know, when it gets right down to it, there's a transmission that happens between a teacher and a student. There's a level of learning that you can't actually get out of a book, and therefore people invest in training. And I really have found this to be true in my community at Yoga Healer and Yoga Health Coaching. We find that our wellness pros have in general invested, by the time they're a mature wellness pro, they've invested 10 to 30 years of study. And usually it's like between $10,000 and $50,000. And when I ask them, I always ask them, like, would you trade it? Like, would you trade it back? Would you trade your wisdom back for the money? They're like, no way. It's their biggest asset. They'd sell their home, right? Or their car before trading in their body intelligence, because they've networked their body. They've networked their body in a way that they have ability to direct their experience. This is an image of the catechist. For many of you who studied yoga, it looks a lot like the Sushumna Nadi with the Ida and Pingala Nadi, right? It looks like the main vortex, the central channel of the body. This is the nervous system, right? That has interweaving energetic cords that intersect up to pineal gland, the third eye. So this kind of inner experience is a lot of what happens when we sit and we close our eyes. This is the nervous system taking control of the immune response. So I just want to show, like, this is what the inner experience of it feels like. Thank you, Alex Gray, for your incredible art that helps us get a hit of what we might be feeling. And he now is able to, he draws it out. So the nervous system controls the immune system. When we look at a picture like the catechist, this is a subtle body experience of the nervous system. The nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord and also the peripheral nerves. So when we are able to sit and relax and let go of the future and the past and be in the now, what happens is we shift into a parasympathetic nervous response. In a parasympathetic nervous response, it's the opposite of a sympathetic nervous system response, which is a stress response. So when we sit and we are able to drop in and let go, we're more in tune with what's going on in our body. We're not reaching for things outside of ourselves. We're not reaching for the coffee or the cookie or the thing. We're not overeating. We're not internet shopping. Like, we're not looking outside ourselves for fullness. We're finding the inner fulfillment. We're finding the fullness inside ourselves. And in that rest and reset response, inflammation goes down, and we're able to simply be with ourselves. Now, in yoga, we would say that, this is an ability to control prana. So instead of prana following the mind, so the prana will follow the thoughts in the mind, and the mind will go to the future or the past. Have you ever noticed that? The mind's either really obsessed with what's on the to-do list, or it's reflecting on something that already happened. So in being in the now, we're able to drop into a field of awareness that starts to make the body, mind, spirit more intelligent. This enables our acquired immune system. So if we look at the immune system, there's two types that we all have within us. There's the innate and the adaptive. Adaptive is synonymous with acquired. So you could say innate versus adaptive or innate versus acquired, and it's the same thing. If we look at something like a brand new virus, let's say, a brand new virus, we want to look at as, what's going to happen? We know the more inflammation there is in someone's body over time, and this can be, we can look at signs of inflammation just to actually have a checklist here. These are signs of inflammation: bloating, dark circles or bags under the eyes, itchy ears, itchy eyes, loose stools, constipation, heartburn, indigestion, bad breath, joint pain or stiffness, allergies, reoccurring cough, sore throat, or congestion, even just like waking up with snot. Headaches, migraines also fall under here. Eating without a strong appetite. Often there's not a strong appetite with inflammation. There's not a strong connection to hunger. Puffiness, water retention, sinus or lymph congestion, lack of sex drive. The skin irritation is really common: rashes, hives, acne, psoriasis, eczema. Might not have a diagnosis. It might just be like irritated skin. Fatigue, so just feeling tired. Brain fog is a big one. Anxiety, depression, stubborn belly fat, brain fog, or mental confusion, grogginess, especially waking up with heaviness is also under there. High blood pressure, feeling stuck, stagnant, or dull. And then obviously, or maybe not obviously, but autoimmune disease, like having a diagnosis. So all of these are signs that there's increased inflammation. So when there's the role of the innate immune response to a new virus is that it'll respond in a non-specific way and it'll react quickly. Now, the more inflammation there is in the body, the more confusion there is in the immune system. There's a word for confusion in Sanskrit, and anyone who studied Ayurveda knows the word is ama, A-M-A. And ama means a lot of things. I'm just going to type it in the chat, A-M-A. It means, it's interesting, it means, first and foremost, it means metabolic toxicity, which sounds really bad. And the interesting thing is all these signs of inflammation are also signs of ama. And I find this endlessly fascinating of like, we call it inflammation in the West, but in Ayurveda, we detect it in the digestive tract. The more ama there is in the system, the more the innate immune response is going to be, it'll be a bit chaotic, and it's going to increase even more inflammation, which will increase even more confusion. Again, if there's already ama, if there's already inflammation, and I'm just going back to like, if we're checking a lot of these symptoms, and for anyone who's like, oh my gosh, I have a ton of these, and this is really depressing, I want to get off this call right now with you, Kate. I would rather not think about this stuff. What I want to say is that like ama in Ayurveda, while it can be pernicious, it can be chronic, and it can be deep, it's removable. Like we can work on that. We can work on that. We can take control. We can take control of that. And to me, that's where Ayurveda is so exciting, is it's this wisdom of life, it's this knowledge of life that allows you to be in the driver's seat of your nervous system, which is controlling your immune system. And also, of course, of your digestive system. So there's all these different parts of ourselves that we've really got to be somewhat aware of. When we talk about the immune system in Ayurveda, the number one thing I want to look at is what's going on in the nervous system. Because nervous system is going to control ama. The second thing is how much ama. How much metabolic toxicity is. So what is metabolic toxicity? It's really simple. It's that which is undigested. The body didn't digest it into something usable. The usable things that the body will create out of food are energy, bodily tissue, and waste. Waste is functional. There's a function to your urine, your menses, your feces, and your sweat. Anyone who's ever had a good bowel movement knows that. Anyone who's ever had a great menses and after you feel light and clear and clean, you can see there's a benefit to the waste. Anyone who's ever drank too much alcohol or eaten too much sugar and had to like drink a lot of water, like there's a huge benefit to your urine, right? So waste isn't bad. What is not digested properly, what isn't turned into energy tissue or waste product, that is what creates the gunk in the goo that'll move out of the digestive tract and into the body. It'll get picked up into the blood and it'll start to spread into the joints. And then when we look at all of these signs of inflammation, AKA ama, we can see that, oh, it's going into the muscles, it's going into the joints, it's going into belly fat or the fat tissue, it's going into the nervous system or into the head, headaches, it's going into the skin with skin issues, allergies, skin irritation. And by the time we get to an autoimmune disease, that means this is to me also, it's fascinating. The degree of inflammation or toxicity has gotten to a point where it's affecting the generation of cells. And so they'll default, instead of towards functional, they'll default to the genetic predisposition or the genetic disease tendency. And that's where you have basically a cell that's now becoming a diseased cell. And then that diseased cell will multiply. And by that time, you now have a diagnosable disease. it could show up as an autoimmune disease. It could show up as heart disease. It could show up as cancer. Those are the big three. In order of, population, the number one is going to be heart disease. Number two is autoimmune, and by far down the road, to a much lesser degree, is cancer. So cancer is not nearly as big of a threat as heart disease and autoimmune. The problem with autoimmune is that all these symptoms, when you go to the doctor for a lot of these symptoms, it's hard, you can't diagnose an autoimmune disease until these symptoms have turned into that qualitative disease state where the cell's no longer recognizable as a healthy cell. I just learned in an Ayurveda and immune lecture by Dr. Shah that antibodies, autoimmune antibodies with this symptomology, like choose 5 or 6 of these symptoms, doesn't really matter which one, that there's already autoimmune antibodies present 10 years before a diagnosis is possible to an actual autoimmune disease. So what Ayurveda says is, like, we recognize all of these symptoms and we say, oh, I know what that is. That's ama. That's ama. Let's treat the ama now. Let's not let it get into qualitative changes in the cells. Let's get the ama out of the digestive tract now. Now, when we do that, if we go back to the innate versus adaptive, there's less inflammation in the body when we get rid of ama. Now, what does the adaptive immune system do? The adaptive immune system says, like, oh, it's a virus. I've been adapting to viruses for, well, humans are what, 6 million years old. Ancestors of humans in hominid form are 300 million years old. Mammals are even older than that before we got into the hominid state. Been adapting to viruses forever. Viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens. Okay, this is a new virus, or this is a new pathogen. What is it? Because there's not a lot of inflammation, there's not a lot of confusion, right? The inflammation equals ama equals confusion. Now there's not a lot of confusion, there's a lot of clarity. Because the nervous system is in this state, it's like just chill mode, right? Not in fight or flight, not in chronic stress. This is a good image of chronic stress over time and how it weakens the immune function, right? So this is not happening because there's not these frequent repeated stressors that are being interpreted as stress. This person still has stress. I actually have a list of, wait, that's not the right list. I was coming up with a list of high body intelligence. And this, I just want to highlight this one. I increase my nervous system capacity to handle stress without negative side effect. This is stress with negative side effect. Increases inflammation over time, weakens the immune function over time. Why? Because there's already a ton of inflammation. Then you get hit with the virus and the body's already full of inflammation. And what does the innate immune system, the first responders do? They create more inflammation. Then the adaptive response is slower and it's more confused. So it's harder to adapt. But if the opposite of this is true, and we have high body intelligence, we consciously direct our nervous system, meaning we get to experience this and this. We increase our ability to handle stress without negative side effect, meaning we use stress as adaptive stress. We increase our capacity in our nervous system to handle more through breathing, through yoga. I also do it through cryotherapy or being in cold water, through exercise, through harder workouts, through weight training, through intermittent fasting. All of these things increase body intelligence, increase our ability to handle stress. It's like the opposite of hangries, when you can go for a day or 2 or 3 without needing food. And it doesn't stress you out. It doesn't even like fluctuate your emotions, right? That's high body intelligence. And we know that autophagy kicks in after about 20 hours of fasting. That's when the cells digest malignancies. It's amazing. They digest cancerous cells. The body has its own ability. Autophagy means self, eat. Auto is self, P-H-A-G, that's eat. So the cell just goes and eats all the stuff that's like basically ama, not helping out, not high functioning cells. The cells are able to clean house. If we're not fasting, we don't get into autophagy, meaning we're just carrying trash around, and then we have increased, you guys heard the word, this is a new word for me. It's inflammaging. I'm going to type it in the chat. It's like so brand new, I can barely say it. It's just brand new to me. I think it's been out for a while. Inflammaging. So inflammaging naturally happens. We naturally have more inflammation with the aging process, but to the degree of which it exacerbates biological aging is just an enormous factor. When we don't develop body intelligence, we accelerate inflammaging. Fasting will do the opposite of inflammaging. In Living Ayurveda, it's super practical, it's super down to earth, and we want it to make a difference in your life, honestly, the moment you start. Hi, it's Kate Stolman, and I'm going to tell you about how the Living Ayurveda course works and why it works the way it does work. A part of my natural personality is that I'm a futurist. I'm an innovator. I can't help it. It's just the way that my awareness works and has always worked. So I'm always looking at how do we make Ayurveda practical to solve for our biggest problems, at home, in nourishing ourselves and getting deep rest and passing on the habits to those who our lives affect. If we understand our habits are truly not our own, we say, hey, whose habits affect me and whose habits am I affecting? And can we align those habits with the kind of radiant longevity that we want to experience, right? Year by year, decade by decade by decade by decade in our road ahead. The other core part of my philosophy is around collective leadership, and I take those two words very seriously. I see how there's a whole next level of open-minded integration where we look at the questions that you're bringing, the conversations you're wanting to have, and we build that into our leadership model, help lead and guide our community in the direction of addressing the deepest, most potent issues that'll help us get the greatest traction in growth and transformational evolution. So that's a lot of, my philosophy on Living Ayurveda. I look at our planet, I look at the stresses to our ecosystems, the stresses to our human population, our human culture, and that's what we're solving for. So that's how the whole course is geared. I take my community very seriously, become part of my heart, you want to become part of my people, and that's how the course works. I mean, that's why it works too, is it's even though we're all coming in from all over the world, we have an experience of deep connection, deep community, and evolution together. All right, I hope that clarifies some of your questions around the Living Ayurveda course. Okay, my digestion is optimal. I'm aware of hunger and satiation. My body is compact. This actually goes right back to the Charak Samhita, the ancient Ayurvedic text of describing the ability. This is cool. It's part of the definition of satya, which is this ability to adapt as you age. Is one of the prerequisites of that is a compact body. So we can't have a body that doesn't have like strong life muscle to bone ratio. Okay, practice daily habits that prevent the diseases of my ancestors. Do seasonal detoxes to increase body intelligence. This is part of Ayurvedic intelligence for the last, for thousands and thousands of years. It's in the ancient texts. It's basically that in the change of seasons, you have a chance to empty out what has built up in the digestive tract, what's built up in the blood, and to empty out any of those imbalances. It's never easier than in seasonal fluctuation. So there's seasonal detoxes that are just part of having high body intelligence. So you go into the next season detoxed, fresh, clean. You go into the next season with better habits. And it's a natural thing that, in Ayurveda, that's like very humane science. They're like, we know stuff accumulates. We know you get into a pattern, like we know. So you just have to press the reset button. Seasonal changes are the time to do that. That was a big reason I started teaching the Yogi Detox in 2002. And I haven't stopped yet because basically I know I've got to do it twice a year for me personally, and all my friends want to come too. So we make it public and global. Okay, high body intelligence. I sleep well, meaning I know how to sleep well. I know how to wind my nervous system down into deep sleep. I rise early. This is very important. And it's just part of being in circadian rhythm. There's phenomenal research right now coming out of Stanford that's showing that if you are aware of light as it turns from into dawn and into dusk, that sets all your entire organ system, endocrine system for the day. And if you don't do that, game over, sorry, more inflammation, more of all of these symptoms, more anxiety, more depression. I really see it with anxiety and depression with the early people that aren't rising early, well rested. Eating from my ecosystem, I'm seeing this more and more. There's a lot of people that have high body intelligence and being able to control their nervous system and know nothing about their ecosystem. Like, don't know the weeds growing outside their door that are super nutritive, more nutritive than the foods in the grocery store. Don't know, how to use a pine needle for, making tea or something like that. And it's that connection to it's so fascinating. The connection to ecosystem creates conscious direction of the nervous system. If you go and you sit under a tree, if you learn a few plants that grow outside your house and you eat those plants, if you tend those plants, if you grow plants, all of this will calm and relax your nervous system. You'll feel more and more supported by your ecosystem. Really important to connect those dots. Okay, so let's see. I just wanted to show one more slide on acute versus chronic inflammation, because I find there's nothing wrong with inflammation as such. Like, it's in an acute way, it's a way that the body signals trauma and response and directs a lot of energy, directs blood flow, directs cleanup, antibodies, et cetera. Or sorry, not antibodies, but cells that basically can figure out what's going on and clean up the job. The problem is when we're living in a chronic stress response, when we're living out of sync with time. And if we're living out of sync with time, we get chronic inflammation, and this is where we get all the big diseases, including cardio, autoimmune, and cancer. They just listed a bunch of other chronic fatigue, lupus, fibromyalgia, all that falls under autoimmune, and same with RA. So the real deal, and the yogis were super aware of this, is how it's not that life is not stressful. Like, life's going to be stressful. I mean, check us out. We're in a day and age when we've got COVID, we've got global warming, we've got a rise in the sheer number of diseases. It's not that stress is going to go down. And so we can't expect it to go down. But what we can do is we can do all of the things to have high body intelligence. These are things that we can control. These are things we can actively invest our attention into. And then also we can invest in studying. We can invest in courses. We can invest in communities that are helping us directly take conscious control of our nervous system and grow our capacity to handle stress. We can be in communities that sleep well, eat well, practice daily habits, do seasonal detoxes, eat from their ecosystems. And if we know that we are our own best investment, then that is what starts to make more and more and more sense. So the tip sheets that I made for this that you'll all receive in the follow-up emails, I think you also already maybe got them. As I just wanted to be super clear that building your nervous system, there's a few basic ways to do that. Your fasting capacity is important, and your lung capacity is important. I have a picture here of this is kind of a cool picture of trees and roots and the lungs and the central nervous system. So if we look at the morning routine, we want to make sure we're hydrated and we eliminate that this is a really basic thing in yoga and Ayurveda, is that you clear your nostrils, that your nostrils don't have dust or pollen in them, that you use a neti pot, or you use oil if you tend towards dryness, and you lubricate or you rinse your nostrils. I tend to do both in certain seasons. Right now, I'm also in the West. I saw someone comment on the fires. It's really smoky. Well, it's not probably as smoky as it is in a lot of other places. We'll just say, I can normally see the mountains and I can't really see the mountains that are right outside my door. So there's these little small particulates in the air, which are going to go into the lungs. Now, if again, if we go into body intelligence, how do we get direct control of the nervous system? The yogis do it, I mentioned it in the beginning, through breath and through mind. And breath is crucial. In order to breathe deeply into your lungs, you need to be able to access your nostrils and even your upper sinuses. Yeah, you can lube with, like, I love coconut oil. It's like my favorite. Some people use ghee. One of my dear friends is over at Shakti Veda, and she makes all these specialized, I'm going to type it in the chat, shaktiveda.com, Dr. Mary Jo Cravata. She has highly specialized nasal oils, which are called Nasyas, N-A-S-Y-A. Also a shout out to Banyan Botanical, who makes a nice Nasya oil. Lubing your nostrils, rinsing your nostrils, again, has a lot to do with just how much moisture is in your body. If you tend towards dryness, you probably don't need to rinse as much as lube unless you're like working construction or hiking in the woods and it's dry or there's smoke. Otherwise, just lubing is fine. If you tend more towards oiliness, rinsing is going to help a lot. If you have congestion, you want to blow that congestion out each morning. So these are the 3 tweaks to your morning routine. And then to breathe big, this is pranayama practice, doing deep breathing. Many of you who do yoga do ujjayi breathing in yoga, which sounds a little bit like the Darth Vader breath. I'll do a demonstration quickly. Right, so doing deep breathing. And what this does is first of all, you'll notice, like, if you do it for a minute or two, your mind might like jump off and go on a walk, but bring it back. So you're noticing that control of your breath will help you actually start to direct your mind. Now, this is really important because if you're directing your mind, you're starting to direct your nervous system. All right, so Nasya, and then doing some deep breathing. And what this will do is you'll notice, like, even in resetting your nervous system, you'll have more of an ability to do the other things. Like, you'll notice that, like, you'll have more of an ability to handle stress in that day. You'll increase your ability to sleep well. You'll increase your desire to even wake up early. You're just getting your body in tune with itself and with presence and with now. It's easier to have much better habits. It's also easier to feel what's going on in your digestive tract because the diaphragm is sitting, basically like right above your digestive tract. And so you're able to feel more the feelings of hunger and the feelings of satiation. If you don't feel hunger and you eat, you will develop ama. Hunger is the body's sign that it's actually ready to digest. If you don't have hunger, you won't digest well. You'll create ama, and again, the ama is going to generate the inflammation. So it's really important to do this stuff early in the morning and to set yourself up for the day ahead. I want to mention too, this is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who has done a lot of behavioral science research. He says, if we do not create and control our environment creates and controls us. I just want to speak to this for a minute. Like, one of the things that I've found is often people they're not really controlling where they're pointing their mind. So they're pointing their mind to repeated stressors throughout the day. So even just the tendency to like pick up the phone and read the news. And then for the news to create a sense of anxiety or stress, right? They're not realizing that they're actually triggering an increase in inflammation in the system over time. So you want to really look at, as you're increasing your body intelligence, you really want to look at, like, who do I spend time with? Am I with people that are inspiring? Am I with people that are encouraging me to have the habits that are really going to help me do the opposite of inflammaging, right? Am I with people that are actually increasing my body intelligence? Am I with people that are increasing their own nervous system capacity, which is going to increase their immune capacity? Am I with people that are compact in their bodies and making good choices? Am I with people that do intermittent fasting? Am I with people that are eating from their ecosystem and helping educate and inspire me to do that? am I designing my home, my office, my refrigerator, am I designing my environment so that I can truly make choices more easily that are in alignment with the future that I want to experience more of, all of which reinforces our body intelligence and continues to grow body intelligence. The more body intelligence grows, the more spiritual intelligence grows. And it should also be vice versa. All right, so that's really what I wanted to talk about today. There's, again, I'll just show there's 2 ways that people who want to learn more Ayurveda can do so with us. One is the Yogi Detox. We start October 7th and go to the 28th. This is like my most super affordable, great place to do a seasonal reset where you will be able to basically like empty the bucket of inflammation. Also, people often get really in touch with what's really going on in their body and how deep imbalances actually are, and start to take radical action on those. Other people who come in really healthy come in because the community is so vibrant, and it allows them to go even deeper into their body intelligence. So we have people come in quite sick. We have people come in as wellness pros who are exceedingly healthy, and we're all in it together from around the globe. It's 3 weeks of, you'll learn a lot of Ayurveda, and you'll also go through, very much a experience where you'll go into the process of letting go of ama in your body, and then you'll go deeper into letting go of the ama, and then you'll emerge feeling clear and clean and renewed with your habits on track and with your palate really reset for the season ahead. So that's why we do that. We've done that twice a year since 2002. That's a long time. And we love it because it's super effective. So the way that all works is we have live calls. I actually have great guest speakers this year. Many of you might know Kate O'Donnell. She's written a number of Ayurvedic cookbooks. Katie Silcox of the Shakti School, and then Mary Sullivan, who's just excellent in Ayurveda and mental health. I brought her in for the COVID mental health factor. So it's a great community experience. We also have mentors and people from around the world that are really into like, how do we thrive together? And then for those who want to study more seriously Ayurveda with me, I do have the year-long course. And you can find out more about that at yogahealer.com/Ayurveda